The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
Well, when I started running, I suppose I didn't stop, and when I got the chance to go, I said I should go, and so I opened up.
We were only the small little fish out there, so we are on there.
Hello, Wexicans! Well, I have to say, we were looking forward to coming down here. We could have sold this place out 3 different times. The Wexicans definitely are a little bit crazy. Davy said it. He said, we're a good fit. They're half mad and I'm half mad. So here we go. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. As Larry O'Gorman says, we need to do an open-air concert next year in Faith Harriers. He's here doing the hard sell for Faith Harriers. So if you see him outside, he's wearing a T-shirt. He'll be up here in panel 2. Panel 1, we're going to talk about Davy Fitzgerald, the great Davy Fitzgerald. A couple of men who've had a run-in with him or two. We have teacher's pet Tony Brown here. He's no problems with Davy whatsoever. Davy loved him, he loved Davy. But we couldn't get Davy here tonight, which is a big disappointment, but understandable, because obviously with the game at the weekend, it's very hard to get him. Plus, he hates my guts, so there was no... so there was definitely no way of doing it. But I pulled a few strings, and we've been able to contact Davy and get him to send a video to everyone who's shown up here tonight. So we'll play that there now.
Hello, it's Davy. I was asked to welcome everyone here tonight, you know, and I'm not saying a word, so I'm not. No, you're not going to get it on me, you know. There's a lot of lads down there tonight now on that couch that have said plenty about me, you know. You've Dignan down there, huh? Crying like it's 1998 all over again. Oh, it's not the game. I love sweepers and all this crack, eh? Dignan, what have you managed, huh? I'll tell you what you've managed, Dignan. The only thing you've ever managed is avoid getting a good one of those off me. Let me tell you that, huh? And then you've got old stab in the back Jamesy O'Connor down there, huh? Oh, Jamesy, some man to talk about Davy, so you know, shut up about me, huh? I don't know what I did to you at all. But I'll tell you, you think these things get to me, Jamesy, they don't get to me, you know? I'm a hardy hurling man. I'm a hard as nails, so I am. I'm very, very tough. And none of that gets to me, because
There, is that okay for you, is it?
It's awful hot, sure. Jesus. Cool it down.
Sweet stuff, James, eh?
But anyway, you know, I know you've Tony Brown down there. I like Tony, you know. I really, really, really like Tony. You know, and Tony knows the real Davy, you know. He knows the modest Davy, and that's what I am. I'm modest in the whole lot, you know. I'm just a humble hurling man with a good team there, you know. I am so proud of those Wexford lads, you know. They're so talented and everything, and, you know, it's great to be in a semi-final with them. You know, but again, no one gives me the credit I deserve, because let's be honest about it, that Wexford team is useless. Useless. You know? You know, it's like I'm racing Liam Sheedy on Sunday and he's in a Ferrari and I'm in a horse and cart, you know? But again, I'll go out there and I'll give it me all, you know? And if we win, it'll be all down to me. Because again, I'm a hardy hurling man, and that's how, look at them muscles there. I tell you, no one tells me what...
Yeah, what's that like now, huh?
Oh, that's nice.
Beautiful stuff. Right, go on off the bed.
What?
I think go on off the bed,
It's
right?
always this time every night you have to go to bed, isn't it?
Go on off with you now, right? Shut that door, I want to watch the news, okay?
Call 1-800-BABES.
Hello, looking to speak to Stacey, please. Yes, it's Joe, that's right.
All right, give it up for our first panel, Michael Dignan, James O'Connor and Tony Brown.
Nice and comfy here anyways.
I was worried, Michael, I don't know if you were in Clara the other night, but I was worried Conor would even do that video, because I thought he won the Open. I saw so much of him celebrating it with Lowry.
He went up to 18th before Lowry did. He was inside ropes. I was there, yeah. We had a good few days over there, so
Yeah.
it was a nice break to get down to Wexford. I'm not as young as I was, so.
I want to talk to you about this panel's about Davy, lads, because he's a unique character, and like I love him, and then I hate him. I think he's a bollocks. I think he's great. I don't know which side to come down on. You and Jamesy obviously have had your run-ins with him. Tony, you had a good relationship with him. Michael, I'll start with you. What are you like with him now, or have you met him, or is there history between you, the two of you, or did you made a pretty harmless comment about sweepers, which you're entitled to do?
Look, I suppose it's not... sport is not simple, I suppose. I'd go back with Jamesy. It was the bet was in All Ireland in '95. We bet him in '98. Gerard Lucknan said the other night, Ella Connor, that he said, I watched the open, he says, with Davy, he says, last night. We were hoping Larry would be better. We fucking hate Offaly. He says, he played constipated golf, he says, in the US Open. You threw away a 4-shot lead, you're useless. He says, so, but he said, the last time I saw such a big crowd, we're in the green in Clara. He said, the last time I saw such a big crowd on the pitch, or on the grass, was in '98 when you all sat on the pitch in Crow Park. So we had that playing, I suppose, rivalry, which is healthy. And it was probably different back then because nowadays I think a lot of players know each other much better to go to college through Fitzgibbon. That time it was sort of, there was no social media. There was more of a warfare element, I think, that, you know, you met on the field, you didn't socialise off the field very much, and then it was when you were finished playing you got to know lads. And then Davy would have been, I suppose you had the likes of Dalo, and then they were very outgoing, and Davy was very driven and, you know, had a chip on his shoulder, obviously, about everything. And
that's gone now, right?
Yeah, and no, but he had, and people use things to their own advantage, I think, through sport, and that went on. So I would have had an issue with different teams he trained, the way they played, and understood it to an extent, obviously, like no more than Derek McGrath with Waterford. Why you do it? Waterford had conceded 7 goals against Tip in the Munster final. He couldn't go in and not change that. So he had to go defensive and make it work. But then as time goes on, I think you have to evolve. And in fairness, Davy has evolved. And you know, initially was very defensive, but then they came up with, you know, like Sir Dermot O'Keefe moving up the field and all that sort of thing. So I made a comment about the sweeper. He went on after one of the matches, and I was actually down in Waterford for a couple of days' holidays that time, and he came on about myself and Henry. And when I was right, we hadn't managed anyone, but I haven't. But Henry has now. He won the Club All Ireland in his first year, so he knows something about it. But I'm not soft-skinned, and anyone that's in the media for as long as I am, and you were, all of us, you know, you take the good with the bad, you give your opinion. That's what I try to do, and sometimes
there's no harm in a little feud every now and then, is there?
Well, there's no harm, and but what I didn't, the only thing I didn't like about that was he sort of implied on the thing that we should be replaced as pundits, and we weren't qualified to be pundits, and so my reaction was, I don't interfere with his life. I never made a comment to the Wexford County Board about anything to do with his employment. So I know he does it for the love of the game and all that. But like Mick O'Dwyer. Yeah. Mick O'Dwyer. Jeez, I loved Mick O'Dwyer. I love driving. Yeah. So anyway, Waterville to Kildare every night. Yeah, right. But anyway. So that was the only thing, and it did create a bit of tension. I answered him back on Morning Ireland, and it got a bit tense. But I met him, and it's like everything.
You've met him since this?
I did meet him since that. Yeah. There's always something that puts things in context, and there's a young lad in 2 Mile House in Kildare, a young lad called Adam Burke, and he was only 20 years of age, very good footballer. He had a stroke on the field, and he was desperately. He was lucky to live, but he was very badly. Physically damaged, and there was a huge fundraising appeal. He needed about £1 million to try to help him, and we did a night up there, and Davy was at it, I was at it, Joe Bradley was at it, Tomas O'Shea, and a couple more, and we had a panel discussion like this, and I chatted to Davy before and after it, and look, life is short, and we shook hands and we had a chat. And
did you bring that up? Did you bring the argument up?
We had a bit of a chat about it, yeah, and but you know, it was civil, and it's funny in his book. The only thing is, he left kind of made up with me, but he left with a bigger chip in his shoulder about Bradley because Conor Sketches was there that night as well. He's at the opening of every envelope, isn't he, and everywhere. But Conor Sketches was there, and he did Davy to Davy. Now, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He did Bradley to Bradley, and then Davy to Davy. He took out to the Suder and the whole lot. Like, it was fairly close to the bone now. So I think he fell out with him that night, and he fell out. And Bradley wasn't very nice to him, and he fell out with him. So he wrote his book then subsequently. So he kind of said, "We're grand again now."
You're down the list.
I'm grand again now for the moment. Maybe after tonight or after Sunday I could be gone again. But
what about you, James? Are you down the list, or are you still up the list? Because in the book, he said about you, in their different ways, both Brian, this is Brian Lohan, and Brian has reason enough over the LIT or the Mary I and UL rivalry. And he says, both Brian and Jamesy have been cutting the back off me since I took over Clare. Why Jamesy especially chose to do that, I don't know. I actually phoned him a couple of times early on in my term as manager to ask him why he seemed to consistently be negative towards my leadership of the team, given I was hardly a wet week in the job. No more than with Lohan, I felt I had a great relationship with Jamesy when we were teammates, but he never seemed to warm to the idea of me as Clare hurling manager. Respond to that.
What a first question.
Yeah, nice gentle opener, Woody, thanks. Yeah. Listen, I'll tell you a little story. It was, I think, Davy's first league game in charge, and Clare had, I think, shipped 5 goals to Galway and Salthill the previous championship, whatever. So I was working, I think it was Satanta Rare Sport or someone. I was on co-commentary, and Clare got the first score, and then someone went right through the middle of the Clare defence and got a goal. And there was a break in the play then, someone got injured, I think about a minute later or whatever, and with the monitors there, and we cut to the replay of the goal, and I just made a comment that, listen, you'd hope to be one thing to be addressed this year, the defensive frailties of last year. And after that, Clare hurled Limerick off the pitch, right? Conor McGrath was on fire the same night, Podgelink was playing, and I couldn't have been more effusive in my praise about, it was refreshing how well the lads had played, and as we hockeyed Limerick inside in the Gaelic grounds. And I was in school on Monday morning, and there was a ping at 12 o'clock or something, so there was a text on the phone, and it was an unidentified number, and there was a big long spiel about the way I was cutting the back off him, and he'd never cut the back off me, and I was there in my own mind saying, is this actually from him, or is it from one of the boys taking the piss, And so I got home at lunch anyway, and I said, I'll ring this number or whatever, and I said to him, did you actually see it? Did you actually hear what I said? And no, one of the boys in LIT said to me, you were cutting the back off me or whatever, and what do you say,
that wasn't a bad impression there, actually.
But
don't start taking the piss out.
So I tell you, yeah, exactly. But look, so I said, listen, it's not my style. Surely you know me better than that. I mean, we hurled together obviously for years. But as I said, that was that, and you shake your head and you get off the phone. And after that, Woody, to be honest about it, I mean, okay, I was doing a column for the Sunday Independent, and I thought fair, and I thought I was honest, and I gave my opinion. I didn't agree maybe with some of the type of hurling we were playing, where Shane O'Donnell maybe was, a real threat, I thought, and we were playing with a sweeper, and there was an extra defender sitting in front of him, we were hitting the ball out to the corner flag, and I just thought we weren't getting the best use of him, and I gave my opinion, and, obviously, he didn't take too well to it, but, personally, there's nothing personal about it, and sure, that, but it's I haven't actually, I'd say, spoken to Davy. I'd say you count on one hand the number of times I've probably spoken to him in the last decade. And again, there was something in the Sunday Independent. I wrote a critical piece maybe after the last year with Clare or whatever. And again, I just said, look, maybe need to get Paul Kinnaird back if we could, and we need to maybe get Podge back into the fold or whatever it was. And again, I got a text from another different unidentified number. And again, I kind of rang the number and we kind of had a chat and we agreed to disagree. But again, he hadn't actually read the entire piece, So you're just shaking your head sometimes. I mean, it's unfortunate, particularly with Brian. I mean, listen, to be honest about it, there was very, very little said in the book. About, I suppose, from my perspective about me, it was more about Brian. And considering, I suppose, the relationship they had, full-back and goalie, that's disappointing.
Yeah, and they were in business together, I think, too. They had a very close relationship.
No, they're not in business together, no. But full-back and goalie, I mean, Lohan minded him for, I suppose, the best part of, 12 to 15 years, whatever. And that's a pity. And, Brian is in business as well. And you know what I mean? So I know he feels, I'd say, pretty strongly. And that relationship is probably fractured beyond repair. Michael Holland, I think, said that there'll be some crack standing between number 1 and number 3 at the 25-year thing in Croke Park next year. He's looking forward to that one. But
that would be Frank Lowe. No, he was 4.
No, Frank is number 4. Yeah,
David got the mix of it those.
Yeah, but Willie, listen, life's too short. And as I said, I played with Davy and Flannan's. Obviously, played with him. Minor. We won a Munster minor title with Clare. Obviously, the All Ireland's Munster titles, and we great days. And as I said, listen, life's too short, to be carrying this kind of stuff.
No, it is, but it's surprising how sensitive they are, Tony. I mean, geez, I just took one quick story. Myself and Jim McGuinness were great pals, and I made one throwaway comment about defensive football, saying I was down at a Wexford match, and Jason Ryan, isn't it?
Jason,
yeah, Jason Ryan was the manager, and he was playing great football, and I made a throwaway comment as a co-commentator. It's great to see Jason Ryan going for a lovely brand of attacking football when you have younger managers like Justin McNulty, Jim McGuinness going negatively. I was up at McGuinness's wedding. We'd never spoken since then. He texted me, friends don't diss each other on the radio. It's mad how sensitive they are. I mean, I think their mentality is you're either with them or you're their enemy.
Yeah, true. And, listen to the lads there. It's typical Davy Fitz, Davy is the type of guy that he has he's a sense of paranoia about him at times, and it works for him sometimes, and it works against him, but he reminds me of Derek McGrath to a certain degree. But there's one thing about Davy Fitz, and that is that he has that side to him, but if you buy into him, he'll treat you with huge respect, and he'll get the best out of you as a player. But just touching on that, like in this business now, even it's so true, Willie. If you open your mouth about anything, like I recently just I do a column at the Cork Examiner there, and I mentioned something there about Brick Welch, and he was playing centre field in the league final there against Limerick this year. And he was only coming back from injury. He only had a couple of games under his belt, and I mentioned that he was kind of off the pace a little bit, and then I texted him recently, no response back or anything, So it's crazy though. It's crazy, and it's that. But no, that's it with some managers,
But you had a great relationship with Davy, and I want to get on because we were just going to start off about the run-ins you had with him, because he's clearly an outstanding, brilliant manager, and the Wexford lads hang on his every word. One of my favourite moments, and we're going to talk about his antics on the sideline as well. One of my favourite antics of his on the sideline happened during a match against G, Tony. We're going to play that here.
On the sideline in the second half.
So I was looking at that, and it was happening in around the right half back position, and I was thinking he's hardly saying that to Tony Brown.
Yeah. No, look, listen, it was fiery at that time, and it's look, you can't deny the facts either, can you? He had him, and we had a fall, so But
who was he saying that to? Do you know?
I'm fairly sure he was saying it to Owen McGrath or Owen Kelly and John Milan at the time,
right.
Because the lads were kind of in his face a little bit too on, going up and down the sideline. But he was, and he was. That's his passion, innit? That's him all over, and that's what he's about. And he says it as he sees it, and that's the way he is,
But he was, I suppose, the antics on the sideline, and this is for all of you, to discuss. He's never going to stop. Right, because he can't stop. And sometimes I think there's a little bit of over-analysis with Davy, and he's running down against Galway this year, even after what happened with Jason Ford last year. And when it was at John Allen in 2012, he squared up to him, and it was James Ryan took him out with his shoulder. So this is going on for a long time. He's a pacemaker in his heart, and here's some analysis saying he does it to get a reaction out of his team. I think he does it because he's half mad, and he has to get, and he just loses his head when things are going against him. Michael, let's start with you.
I think you're wrong about the half bit anyway. I think he's fully mad. I think he has chats himself and decides, no, I'm not going to do it. And to mature, he's changed, and he's, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. Go up in the box.
I'd say he wants to change.
Yeah, he does. And then the match goes, and he just can't help it. I'd say that's it. I wouldn't be great in the line myself now over underage teams and all that.
Just remembering. Okay.
So I have to. I can't be talking about both sides of my mouth here. So when you're trying to win, I think, particularly if you look at, I suppose, the battles he's fought, and I think I'd like to add that to it. He has been hugely successful as a manager. What he has achieved, Fitzgibbon Cubs with Waterford, with Clare, and now winning the Leinster with Wexford. And I think he's inspiring another generation of Wexford. I think their minor win this year was their first Leinster minor since 1985. I actually played against Wexford that year. They bet us in the Leinster semi-final, and it's hard to believe it's that long ago. That's 34 years ago, and that's massive. Their 20 team had a nice team this year. They were betting the Leinster final, only beaten 3 points by a good Kilkenny team. So, and I think there's a great drive going on for a number of years with Wexford hurling anyway. But but he does that. He brings a massive energy to the thing. But it's hard to see him. It's hard to see him changing. And and it's funny. Sports is a funny thing. If Wexford hadn't won that Leinster and say during the semi-final on Sunday, if they were gone out of the championship, maybe his time would have been up at Wexford. And where would he go then? You have Waterford, Clare. But now I'd say, regardless, he'll knock another 2 or 3 years out of Wexford now anyway. So, so he's no, but he is. Look, he is a divisive character. But I don't think he does it for any particular reason. I just look his own way going on. He doesn't. he doesn't take criticism. And Tony makes a very good point. I think that's modern society. Like, we all got plenty of commentary in the press. Never bothered me. I remember All-Ireland semi-final in '89. I often tell that story. You probably heard it before, about my father in the morning of the match. And he says to me, he's a Galway Connemara man. He's still alive, thank God. This is the famous man that doesn't have Sky. And but he's.
Do not get it for you.
No. He doesn't want it. He's a Republican. But I have it though. I watched the golf last week. It was later. He's 85 now in September. But he's a fierce Galway man and a Connemara man. So he says to me that morning, "What's wrong with you?" I was pushing the breakfast around the plate, and there was no dietitians that time. There was the full fry or whatever. And my mother was yapping away, and his father was quiet and was reading the paper. And he left down the paper and said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Jeez, I'm shocking nervous." I was 20. I was playing midfield. Galway won the Ireland '87 and '88. This was '88, the Ireland semi-final. I was barely 20 years of age, playing midfield against, and Linsky was picked midfield, and the great Galway team, Joe Cooney and all the lads, Pete Finnerty, McInerney, the half-back line, and Tony Keady, God rest him. So I was pushing on. Next I got up and I went out the back, and I came back in. He said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I'm fierce nervous." I said, "My old stomach, I don't know what's wrong with me." He said, "If I was you," he said, "you should eat up out of that." He said, "There's no point being in the middle of Crow Park making a fool of yourself and being hungry as well." And and he was right on both counts, right? Because when the nerves wore off, I was starving with hunger, and I was taken off at half time. and Vincent Hogan gave me 4 out of 10 in the Independent the next morning. And I didn't follow out Vincent Hogan over that. That was a harsh thing to do to a young lad. You know, I scored a point. I didn't think I was doing that bad. I think it was more I think the older Offaly players wanted me out there. Pat Delaney, I was in the loo in the cubicle, and I heard Delaney say, "Get that lad out there." He says, "Quick."
Isn't it gas how much players would pay attention to just a 4 out of 10 rating off a journalist who, like, do you know what I mean? In the Independent, well, I got a 6. Now I thought I played a lot better than that. Yeah. Like, would you pay any attention to that, lads?
Well, as a player, of course you would, because look, at the end of the day, you want to produce and you want to deliver a performance, you know. But
yeah, but who cares what that lad thinks? Like that was a 6 out of 10 in his opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but there's where the mentality comes into it, you know, and the environment that we're living in modern sport, you know. So you look at some of the best sports stars in the world. The quickest thing that they're able to do, and I would have probably had a problem with that when I was hurling, was they're able to just park it up, move on. And move on to park it up, move on to the next target. And perfect example of that was Shane Lowry. From the previous year, losing whatever, he was 4 ahead or 5 ahead. And his mentality then just to be able to come back and produce the next day. And, you know, I think players read into too much criticism and stuff like that. But maybe we always talk about tactics. How physical players are, the conditioning, strength and conditioning, but the psychology side of it is, you know, it's not so much talked about. It's the dark side of hurling, and in fairness to Davy Fitz, he's very, very good at that as well, you know, to be able to get fellas in the right frame of mind, particularly playing against the big teams like Tipperary and the traditional counties, and he's fantastic at that. And you're right, like it is.
I think Wooly is. I think as well. Like, that's probably why you'd never won much, but like you have to be self-critical, and you have to be honest with yourself. And if you have a match, it's not that it wasn't. I remember it didn't bother me that Vincent Hogan gave me 4 or 10, but it bothered me the way I played, and I was taken off at half time. And I had a couple of other junctures throughout my career. I missed the '94 All-Ireland. I was injured in the Leinster final, and I got back for 10 minutes in the semi-final, and I wasn't picked for the final, even though I felt I should be. And Eamon Cregan didn't pick me, and I decided after that All-Ireland didn't mean anything to me. And I said, I'm going to win another All-Ireland, and I'm going to be playing, and I'm never going to miss. And I've never missed another championship game for the rest of my career. Well, I never missed. In my whole 13 years, I played every match at some stage. But that hurt, and it has to. And if you play badly, and it doesn't mean anything to you, or if you let down the team, or if you let yourself down, or your family down, you have to use those things. You have to forget them. Shane Lowry didn't forget that overnight. It took him 18 months, 2 years to get over that. It took an awful lot out of him. And I think if it means enough to you, and if you're going to win All-Irelands, the bad days, I think they mould you into the better player.
Yeah,
you know yourself, like how you played. You know what I mean? You've your own. You set your own standards, and you don't need to read some guy in the paper telling you were 4 out of 10. You know yourself. You know, Lagnan wouldn't have been too slow to remind you if you were 4 out of 10 performance. No,
and that's true. But just under what Tony says there about how Davy would get teams up for it, because there's videos on YouTube of him shouting and roaring, and that's kind of how I would picture him in the dressing room, like maybe banging a hurl, and because they come out in the field and they're ravenous for ball, and traditionally that's how you get into that kind of frame of mind. And I was reading a quote, thought it was very interesting this year. He doesn't do shouting team talks anymore. He's given that up. So he says, that's kind of the way we are, he said after Leinster final. He says, we don't do team talks before we go out in the field. We don't have one before we went, or we didn't have one before we went down in the field today. I won't tell you what we did, but it was different, which is pure Davy. Won't tell you now what it was. He says, I just want them to go out and hurl. But I thought it was a very interesting one, that Davy's moved on from that shouting and roaring team talk. So maybe that's where the game has gone in general anyways.
Well, have you seen his body language pre-game? You know, I mean, he looks like he's wired. I mean, that he wants to, you know, and that...
Do you think he's lying there, or do you think he's telling the truth?
Well, let's look at it. It probably has moved on in terms of, you know, the analysis and the professionalism and the psychology of it. And in fairness, that's the one thing I think he really has brought to Wexford, is just the whole diet, the lifestyle, the nutrition. You know, these guys are athletes now. They live that life, and he certainly brought that. So, I mean, I'd imagine he's got people in the backroom team that, listen, if this is what's required vis-a-vis mentally getting guys ready, you know, that's where he's going to go. I think the big thing with Wexford, and you know, you probably know this in terms of the counties the three of us has come from, is belief. You know, and you don't acquire that overnight, and you can't win the big matches unless you have that belief. And I remember, we'll say, even going back to the '95 All-Ireland final against Offaly, I didn't really believe until I said the Friday night before the game that we were going to win the game. I remember Lognan, we had a meeting in the dressing room on the Friday night in Guza Park, and I remember him saying, you know, if we really make a battle of it, Offaly won't live with us. You know, in the sense we were that fit, we were obviously going really well at the time. And I remember coming out of that dressing room saying, he's right. But I didn't believe it until the Friday night before the game.
Right, so that speech was very important to you.
Fierce important, yeah. And as that, I think that's, like, and sometimes, like, and you even saw in the Leinster final, that Wexford maybe had to be 6-7 points better than Kilkenny to win by 1. And that was the same with us in Clare, and maybe it's the same in Offaly and Waterford and the counties maybe that are struggling to make the breakthrough. And, you know, you have to, when you're trying to beat us, was the Corks, the Tips, the Kilkennys. And I think that's the biggest thing in terms of his achievement with me, that the Wexford players genuinely believed. And I suppose, look, they'd beaten Kilkenny in the Championship before, they'd beaten them in the league and Walsh Cup. And that's really, I think, his biggest achievement.
He's beaten everybody in his tenure.
Well,
you know, all the top teams. I don't think you can have a set rule in a dressing room about what you do, because there's certain times there is a bit of straight talking needed. There's other times, you know, you can say players have to go out in the field and do it, which they have to do. But if you sense something, so I would have experienced both. I never really had any of our successful managers. Michael Bond was a very good speaker, but he'd be very very organised, you know. Babs was a bit different when he was there, and Eamon Cregan was the man of steel.
And would Babs shout and roar, or?
No, that'd take too much out of him. No, Babs shot himself in the foot outside the dressing room, but
I think Davy's really after growing as a manager.
Yeah, we would have shouted and roared for you now, would he?
Yeah, he would have. Well, like, you must remember when Davy came into Waterford, Davy was only after retiring, I think, from intercounty hurling at the time. You know, he was only 37 years of age, and he would have had that small. He would have been like that in the dressing room, I suppose, roaring and shouting and hammering and hitting tables and stuff. But you could see him growing as time went on, you know, and he got very, I suppose, astute about the game, very tactical about the game, and he grew in that sense, you know. But there's no doubt about it. He would have went down that line. But the one thing that I noticed with Davy is that the energy levels that he brings pre a big game, like so in other words, in these training sessions, is I've trained. I played for a long time. Trained under a
very long time.
Yeah, too long, Willie. But trained under a lot of managers, and the energy that guy brings to training sessions, I've never seen it with any. And I go and watch a lot of people coaching and training. I've never seen it before. Just the energy that he brings to it, and he has to work well done before he delivers. You know. And the one thing he does that I do notice, that when he goes into a setup very early, he wants to create an environment that has been, that betters the environment that has been there before. So what he wants to do really is quickly get players to buy into what it's all about and what's happening there. So he just really wants to create an environment that has been better historically, that has been there before. Hence why you have fellas going up in buses up to 6 Mile Bridge to get them to come back down. He just creates that environment, and you can see why the Wexford lads have bought into it, you know.
It's very impressive, more so after doing a hard day's work and driving the whole way from Clare, like, it's savage.
Let's not open a kind of open up another can of worms. But this is the thing. Look, listen. Sure, at the end of the day, Davies from Clare, he got there's no doubt he got hurt the way he left Clare, Jamesy. Like the players pretty much, he left it in the players' hands, and some lads didn't want him, and that was enough for him. And in fairness, I thought he was decent in his statement. Said, look, he spelt out exactly what happened. Didn't lie about it. Our players didn't want me, and I'd say he couldn't believe the Wexford job popped up, like a county with potential. The drive was poxy. You know, it's going to cost him a fortune driving there. But like, I mean, it just the right job came at the right time for him.
Did, yeah, and like, I mean, it was probably a more attractive job than what it looked maybe on the outside, in the sense of, like, obviously, look, good work had been done, and you know, even Liam's last year in charge, I mean, you know, beat Cork in the championship that year, you know, which was a really good result. And you can see players like David Dunn were coming on board.
But that was a one-off, though, because Wexford weren't going that well before him. Like, I mean, the Cork were going terribly that year, I remember. They were sitting ducks. You know, I do, when people say Wexford beat Cork before Davy arrived, that wasn't a true picture of where Wexford were at, or am I being unfair on Liam Dunn?
But I think, like, listen, the players were there. I mean, good players were there. Now, obviously, I think he took it to an absolutely another level. There's no doubt about it in terms of, as I said, like the whole strength and conditioning, the diet, the nutrition, and like, and as a player, as Tony said, like, when you're suddenly feel the bar has been raised psychologically, it does a huge amount for you in terms of, you know, you're fitter, you're stronger. If you believe that, listen, our setup is, you know, better than or as good as what it is in Limerick or in Cork or Kilkenny, it gives you a huge the confidence. I mean, when Loughnane was there with Clare, that's one of the big things he did. We felt that nobody else is doing the type of training that we're doing. Nobody else is doing the quality of ball work, because Loughnane was a super coach. And that feeds into the psychology. But I think he brought all those things on board and brought that level of professionalism and raised the bar. And on top of that, then, when you had, we'll say, the underage success coming through and good players coming through, and listen, the success couldn't have happened if the players weren't there. And even little things like, I mean, I thought Liam McGovern, I watched the Leinster final back during the week. McGovern was phenomenal in the Leinster final, you know, and he's a guy I think that will blossom in Croke Park. But he had cruciate trouble and was out. But MacDonald had burst onto the scene. Liam Ryan had come onto the scene, you know, as 19, 20-year-olds. I mean, you know, these guys were guys that you knew, like, you know, were going to be there as central planks in that Wexford team for the next 10 years. So no doubt about it. Listen, don't get me wrong, not trying to take anything from what he's done. But as I said, I remember meeting a Wexford man, former Wexford player, coming out of Thurles, I think, after they lost to Waterford, and he said to me, listen, he said, there's a lot of good young talent in the county. He said it's a more attractive job than it might seem on the outside. Yeah. But he was probably a perfect fit.
Jamesy is right. Like, you know, I would have felt in the last 2 years that Wexford would have probably wrong place to say this, slightly underachieved in my opinion, because when I look back at I'm not too far away from here, and I look back at the work that's been put in down in Wexford is phenomenal over the last years. And if you look through the stats, Wexford actually have been, I stand to be corrected, but they have been in the last 7 under 21 and 20 Leinster finals. They've been in 6 of them, won 3 of them, 2-13, 2-14, 2-15. So, and whilst in that period, the standard within Leinster, particularly with Kilkenny, have slightly come down. So I would have felt that there was a Leinster championship there for him, and I felt it slightly, but they seem to be peaking under him at this year now, and they seem to just have it right. And what I think has stood to him really, why they're winning, why they won the Leinster title really, and could push on to an All-Ireland, is the fact that their big guys are playing well. You know, it's this year in particular, sometimes you might be led by Davy Fitz, and I've experienced by that, and you'll follow in and you'll row on that wagon. But particularly this year with Wexford, they're being led by their big players, Lee Chin, Liam Ryan, those guys, Conor MacDonald, and they're the guys now that are delivering. And that's the difference with Wexford this year. Yes, Davy came in and he changed the standards and he put the standards up here. But at the end of the day, it's like when you hear the talk coming out of Kilkenny, when you go in between the white lines, it's the big guys, the big players that deliver, and that's going to be the big thing for Tipperary or for Wexford this weekend. Can those guys still deliver? The big players still deliver, because that's what it's going to fall down, and that's why they're winning at the moment. That's why Wexford are winning at the moment, and that's how they'll get to an All-Ireland final, if those guys again produce on the big day. And that's not easy to do. I've been there. I played in a lot of semi-finals, didn't get through them, and that's the difference. The big guys delivering on that day and having the mentality to actually produce on the semi, because there's no doubt about it, Tip can do that. They've been there, they've done it, they know how to win semi-finals, so it's hugely important that Wexford and those guys deliver again, and that's why they're there.
Yeah, exactly. One other quote I wanted to read out to you was Davy after Leinster final. He likes to say a few things after them winning. He said, you should come down to our training and you would know what it's like. They come in an hour beforehand. They belt out tunes. We all sit down and chat for a while. I want it to be an environment where they want to come into. So just thinking of them all landing an hour before. Now, I've never been on a team, you come in dribs and drabs and you get your physio done or whatever, that they're sitting in, enjoying. Like, I mean, it sounds almost like a professional environment, Michael. Do you know, like, I don't know how he's done this, but like if players are willing to come an hour before and they've all lived busy lives, that's a serious environment he's after getting together.
Well, it is, and I think if you want to be serious about it from a hurling point of view, look where we've gone to in Offaly. We slipped off the radar completely. And if the likes of Davy Fitzgerald had arrived in Offaly 3 or 4 years ago, I'm not saying we had the level of player that Wexford had, but I think we've been an awful lot better.
He'd make a huge difference no matter where he goes.
Massive, and there's very few managers in the history of the game. Mick O'Dwyer obviously had massive success with Kerry, but he went to Laois and Kildare first, and then Laois, and even Wicklow. When he went to Wicklow, the first Sunday he was in charge in a Burren Cup match, 10,000 people at the match in Auckland, you know. And Wexford have, and I'm not just saying it because I'm here. I've said it many times over years. Wexford have the best supporters in Ireland in terms of. But they have, and you know that. But yeah, well, we football as well, you see. That's well. And golf now. We're golfers now. We're not. We're finished with hurling and football. But
all their games development money is going into golf.
No, we're doing away with everything else. But anyway, but he genuinely. So when he comes into a county and then a county like Wexford and the supporters get behind him first of all, huge crowds go to matches anyway, but it went on to a different level. So straight away, from a financial point of view for the county board, he's looking for a backroom team of X, Y, and Z. He's saying, yeah, we'll self-fund it here. There's no issue, and they're going to make more. And that's the reality of modern high-level sport, whether it's Dublin football or Kilkenny or Limerick hurlers or anybody. The setups, the teams that are winning have serious setups, and you have to match that or you have no chance. And then to get the buy-in from the players, and I think it's fantastic to see the players enjoying the game like that. Because look, it's not a game. I think it's gone way over the top in terms of, and that's, look, I'm getting on. It's probably old-fashioned thinking, but what they're expected to put into it and the level of preparation and training and everything else for an amateur sport, and I just think it's crazy, and the level of analysis and critique and everything that the players go through.
You see, I'll just tell you this much now, just cut you off on that. Players want that now. See, I'm on the same level as you, because I came from an era of 2 nights a week a match. Yeah. Players don't want that. They want all this.
No, they think they want it.
Yeah, well, they're programmed into wanting it.
They don't know any better, but it's very bad. It's not good for them.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you watch all these lads in 10 years' time.
They think another county's doing it, so that's why they want to do it.
And unless lads are clever, like some of the Dublin footballers, and they're making their way, you have 10 or 12 years there to play the game and to establish your career and do whatever you're going to do. If you're very successful and you get to the top level, grand. But if you don't, which is 95% of the teams, only one team can win the All-Ireland every year. And if you don't have that success and don't win an All-Ireland, and even if you do, there's a big life after.
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared for that. But that's straying away from the point. But look, I think Davy has he's done very well. It's great to see the players. Now, you just take Brian Cody. The Kilkenny players are there an hour before training too, to go out training. Like Eddie Brennan tells a great story about.
I can't imagine Cody belting out tunes before training.
Well, whoever turned on the first, whatever they use, iPad or iPad, he'd be gone anyway. That's for sure. He'd never be seen again.
Tommy Fleming.
Yeah.
On the radio in there or something like that. That's grand fun.
And the boys probably come in with a record player on it. The boys, but
Wooly, just to come in on that. Sorry, Michael.
Go ahead, Tony. Yeah.
I remember even like when he came to Waterford. That's back 2008. I remember the night he came in there, and we were just, it was like a tornado hit the dressing room. It was like a tornado hit Welsh Park. We actually turned around and questioned ourselves, well, what have we actually been doing for the last 5-6 years? We won a couple of Munster titles or whatever, but actually where could we have went, because I remember he came in, and it was typical Davy, we were all saying, but where is he? Is he after taking a job or not? And we were all sitting inside in the dressing room, and the door was closed, and chairman comes in, and makes a big speech about Davy and the whole lot. It was really typical Davy. Davy is a guy that needs to be feel welcome and loved to a certain degree, And it works both ways. If you show him that, he will develop you as a player. But I remember he was introduced, and it was something like out of Live at the Palladium or something. He could burst in the door, but he told us a few home truths. And never forget then going out down the tunnel down into Welsh Park, and there must have been 1,000 slitters on the field. There must have been 1,000 cones around. There was an entourage of people all around the place, and we were saying, you know, the buzz was there. It was just phenomenal. Before that, a couple of months before that, you could have been out in the field there, 7:30, 7:25, pucking over and across with Justin McCarthy. Do you know, just tipping across with him. But he brought that side to him, and the following week then we were all in there and we had urine samples. We were all, you know, saying, what the hell is going on here? You know, he was testing, and he just created that environment very, very quickly. But
that was after he said some of the Clare lads were on the hard stuff. Isn't that what he said back in? That wasn't your time.
I was well retired that day.
The Clare lads were all, the samples were full of my body. But Eddie Brennan tells the story about going training, he was kind of on and off. Crody was doing his thing with him. He was giving him a game and then taking him off and then bringing him on and taking him off, and he was getting a bit fed up of it. And he was down in Kilkenny one day and he met Joe Hennessy, the great Kilkenny hurler in the 70s and 80s. And he was telling Joe, and he was feeling sorry for himself and the whole lot. And Joe says, and what time do you begin to train that and all that? Trains at 7:30. I'll be there at 7 o'clock, 7:15. He says, so go down there some even at 6:30 and see what's going on. So he went down the next Tuesday. Henry was out taking 100 frees. Tommy Walsh was there. JJ Delaney. All the lads, the top players, well-established lads, they were all there at 6:30 hurling. So Eddie realised he had to up his game and get to another level, and that's what he did. So that's, you know, they're all different.
And that's the thing. I mean, even, you know, the top players that I played with, I mean, you know, Lohan, the amount of work that Lohan did on his own, you know what I mean, away from the training pitch. And there's a correlation between, you know, the whole, how hard, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And all the top players are doing that bit extra. It's the stuff that they do probably away from the pitch that makes a difference. That's what separates them.
Yeah, it's dedication. I was told that recently about the Dublin footballers, and that he's cluxing up the game now. So he's at training at maybe 6 o'clock for 7:30. So he's doing his kicking all the train away. Then Johnny Cooper lands in, and he's here at 5:30. So he's doing his stretch and his limb rob. He's dedicated. So now everybody, the bar's raised so far now that it keeps going down. So you're going to have to take a half day off work to keep up with the, you know what I mean, keep up with the top boys. We're going to finish on predictions, lads. I'm going to start with you, Tony, down that end. We'll get predictions off the second panel as well. So they're all gone quiet for this. Predictions are very important to supporters. They are. It's like ratings for players. It's that important. So Tony, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's hard to give your predictions with a crowd like that out there. But actually, it's funny. I only found out there this evening that I'm related to the Quigleys. So come on, Wexford. Yeah, I only found out this evening. Yeah,
I wouldn't let you get into the details behind that one. You got a knock on the door, did you?
True. Listen, no.
Commiserations, no one likes that news. So.
Look, it has the makings of a fascinating game tactically, because look, you have one team that likes to create space and you have one team that likes to shut down space, and you know it's going to be fascinating to see who can create that space at either end. But look, I think Wexford at the moment are the form team going into this. Tip on one side, they're spluttering a little bit, and I think Wexford won't get a better opportunity now. You know, as Jamesy mentioned, they just have to have that belief that they can win it, and I think they have at the moment. For Tipperary, I think they just need the likes of, like, John McGrath's not on form. If he hits form, they could be in trouble. Bubbles is not on form. If he hits form, you know. But I just think that the Leinster Championship in particular has been a fantastic championship this year. I think it's been way ahead of the Munster Championship. So for that reason, I just have a feeling that Wexford, if the big guys deliver, if those big guys deliver, I think they'll just shade it. So Wexford for me.
Okay, well, Wexford. Wexford Limerick all over again. Jamesy, we'll go with you next.
Is there a back door out of this? I suppose, look, if you go back to the Leinster final, I mean, you know, I tipped Kilkenny. I thought Kilkenny would win. I thought an awful lot of things had to go right for Wexford to win, but they did. I mean, they had 3 wides in 70 minutes. They were unbelievably efficient. Now, some of those, McDonald got an unbelievable score from the sideline. O'Keefe got a great score from the sideline. Rory O'Connor got an unbelievable point on the run from the sideline. Chin nailed every one of the frees, even frees from a different parish. You know, might have dropped one short. You know, that level of efficiency, and as Tony said earlier, all the big guns performed. You know, Chin was good, MacDonald was excellent, Rory O'Connor was brilliant. You know, McGovern. I thought the guys that needed to go well went well, and they didn't concede a goal. You know, and as I said, all those things came good, and they still won by 3 points. I just think that Tip were stung after the Munster final performance. I don't think they saw it coming, but I think they parked it. And I think the age profile of the Tip team, like Callanan now and Pádraig Maher, these guys know that, listen, they're not going to get too many opportunities, you know, to get back to another final and win a third medal. They're 70 minutes away from it. My sources at Tip would tell me that there's a big performance coming, and I just feel that, look at, if Tip won't allow, I think, the game to be played on Wexford's terms the same way it was played in Limerick's terms in the Munster final, and I think they'll get a couple of goals. I think they'll get ahead, and I think that's the problem for Wexford. You know, if they fall behind, can they claw it back? And for me, like, listen, could Wexford do it? Absolutely. Have they the legs? Yeah. Tip suddenly look like a team in their 30s, a lot of mileage in the clocks. But I still think there's a big performance in them, and I still think they'll find a way to get the goals to win it.
Okay, 1 Wexford, 1 Tip. Michael?
No pressure now, Michael, right? No.
Davy was right. You know, Davy knows his stuff, right, doesn't he? You know. But what I think the key, I think Wexford. I was in Wexford Park with Kilkenny and Wexford. The Leinster final form has got a great boost with Kilkenny's performance against Cork. Like, I think we know exactly what we're going to get from Wexford. You're going to get 100% committed. We know the system, what they're going to play, what they're going to do. The problem is for Wexford is that Tip know that as well. And Eamon O'Shea is one of the best tacticians in the game. And we're talking about different managers here tonight, but we didn't talk about Liam Sheedy. And Liam Sheedy is a good friend of mine. He's probably one of the most determined people I've ever met in my life, in any walk of life. He's a savage. And they're hurt after the Munster final. Like, I look back on it. The negatives about Tip are this. They had 15 players at the start that he went with, the older players. He didn't bring in the young players. He didn't feel they were ready. Bonner, Maher and Colm Parkinson got injured. Bonner's gone for the year, so they know that now. When their half-forward line doesn't function, the team collapses.
Yeah. Are they a bit fickle when they lose? They're kind of go scramble.
Well, the supporters get down on them as well, and everything like that. Everything turns very quickly. When they're going well, it's a massive this way, and when they're going bad, it's a massive this way. So the Munster final against Laois, they stuttered over it, you know, and that was partly down. Laois played very well, but Tip looked a bit flat. So the key to this match to me is what Tipperary turn up. Yeah. And at the start of the championship, they were I did nearly all their matches, commentaries on their matches. They were unbelievable. And you don't become like the form of them, the fitness level of them, like the Pádraig Maher, you mentioned, Callan and Brendan Maher, back from a serious injury, fitter and faster than they ever were. And still, we talk about the form. Top goal scorer from play in Ireland this year is Seamus Callan, 6 goals and 14 points. He scored a goal in every championship game. The second top scorer from play in Ireland this year, and he's been brutal, is John McGrath, 215. And people are saying he's playing terrible. Their average score is 223 a game. So if they score 223, that's 29 points, and that's taking into account a Munster final in Dublin, they're scoring 30 plus points a game. So Tip are going to score around that. They're going to try to isolate Noel McGrath as a loose man with the way Wexford are going to play. He can score 6 from play from the middle of the field. So it's all about matchups. It's all about who goes better. I think the most Wexford can score the way they play is about 23 or 4 points. I think the most Tip can score is 27 or 8 points. So to me, and now that's Tip with a performance. Yeah. Tip, the way they've been, Wexford win. But Tipperary with a top performance, with the ability of that forward line, they're going to score more than Wexford. So unfortunately, I hate saying it here, I think Tip by about 3 or 4 points.
Okay. It'll actually be...
I'll do it to Diagon. Davy was right, wasn't he?
It'll actually be very interesting to see will tactically will Liam Sheedy change, you know? It's going to be very interesting to see that, like, because I've often thought, with particularly the way Wexford play, you know, and Michael mentioned Noel McGrath. For me, he's one guy that tactically, if he made 1 or 2 switches, like, they haven't replaced Bonnie Maher centre forward at the moment, and I just think that a mould in his category could be Michael Breen to put in there, because he's very aggressive on the ball. He likes to attack, he likes to move forward. And the same with Noel McGrath. Wexford are going to offer up space. You've seen it the last day, you know. They'll allow the puck outs to happen. And I just think that Noel McGrath would make a super number 6 or a sweeper. The fact that he can deliver and pinpoint.
He's dropping deep.
I know Paddy Maher is playing exceptional there at the moment, but just with that delivery, if you offer up space, he's one guy that if a small little tactic, he could just unlock that defence like that.
Colm, just make one last point about Wexford. I think that if you look at their young players, the age profile, Rory O'Connor's only 20, the 2 Rex, Conor Furman, their under 21 team this year, there's 3 or 4 of them excellent. I believe over the next couple of years when them lads become more leaders, I think when they get more trust in the backline, when they push forward a bit more, I think Conor McDonald isolated on the edge of the square one-on-one is unmarkable.
Yeah, he's only shown his true potential in the last game or 2.
Yeah, because they're suiting him a bit better. They're leaving him on the edge of the square. But imagine if there wasn't an extra man back there to pick him up. He's unbelievable in the air. And he's the best modern day player in the air. So Limerick are at the top of the peak. Kilkenny are trying to get there. Wexford have beaten them. Tipper on the way out. The next 2 to 3 years, Wexford will win Northern.
Okay, you saved yourself. You saved yourself. You saved yourself. All right. In fairness, he's an all right sort Duignan, isn't he?
That's why he lasted 20 years.
Listen, we're 2-1 on Tip, but we have a panel with 2 Wexford players in the next panel, so we might tie it up and the casting vote might end up with me, so you never know what happened. I'm going to leave this panel with another video of Conor's sketches, and this came out, I think it's his best ever video. This came out around the time of Michael and Henry's feud with Davy. So here it is. We're taking a 5-minute break after this and we'll be up with panel 2. So Conor, take it away.
Duignan's at it again, John. I know, eh? He's saying I should go up. What does he want you to do, eh? Douse yourself in fertilizer, eh? What am I going to do with him, John? Eh? What are we going to do? I know, Davy, I know. And I was thinking about it, right? I think we should send this fella a message, right? That he will not forget. Absolutely. I have a plan. Right, that looks good to you. Cheers, you're an enemy. John, I look like a lump of Joe. Come on. I want to look scary. I'm scared just looking at you, eh? Now go for it. Yeah. Hello, Michael, it's Dave. I saw your reply there with the articles you've been writing, eh? Oh, you can't work the Sky TV box, as I call you, eh? Come on, the banner. Because you started all this shit. You're with your analysis crack, right? Absolutely, baby. How's that? How's that, John? It was good, Davy, but you need a little bit more angle, right? You know, think you're a cross between Conor McGregor and Mufasa, right? King of the jungle, baby. Okay. Give me a roll. Jesus, Davy, I said Mufasa, not Simba, eh? Roll. That's it. Go on. Good length. Go again. Okay, let's go. Action. Hello, Michael, it's me again. I'm your worst memory. You're my worst nightmare, You're a big man to talk over the television network, so you are, That's right. I remember you cried like a child in To Be Faced in 95 when we bet you in the All-Ireland final, right? You cried like a woman in 98. You wouldn't get off the field, you got your replay. You big dirty biff, are you? Jeez. I tell you, you're one of the most useless hurlers I've ever seen. And I'm officially christening you now today. Oh, shite when you puck it, And as for Henry Sheffield, you're going around saying you're the king of this, you're the king of that. You're the king of dog shite, so yeah. I will puck around with either of ye anytime, any place, or for anything, lads, right? Unreal. How was that, Chuck? Was that Just back up there now and beat your shit, right? Rip that top off there a bit. There you go. George, give me a bit of a bollocks. Come on, Davy. Dip your hands in petrol and show me the fists. That's it, Davy. What does that do, George? Jesus, I don't know, You smell like a fucking lawnmower, George, Give us a few of the moves, Davy. That's it. Right, you lift them up. Just like McGregor, you don't want none of this, Mikey. Give me the flying kick, Davy. Sweet son, Jesus, Davy, I told you to strike, You fucking answering, George.
See you in 5 minutes. Welcome back, Wexford. Are you ready for panel number 2? All right, please give it up for Larry O'Gorman, Tom Dempsey, and our very own from Leash, Cheddar Plunkett. I have a funny feeling that the predictions are going to be evened up very soon if we start down. So, Tom, I want to start with you. There's 40,000 Wexicans expected in Croke Park this weekend. Like I said, there was the amount of demand for tickets for here, there really are fanatical supporters.
But you only have to look down at the little faces. The excitement down here tonight is incredible. But I'm actually, the Wexford supporters, Wooly, most counties think that they have the best supporters in the country. Wexford have the best supporters in the country, and that's the truth.
Okay. Why is that?
I'll tell you why. They're unique. They'll put you in your place every so often. I was thinking when I came into the Crown Bar tonight. A couple of years ago, I was down in the Crown, and we were kind of, myself and the brother here, we're living on this 96 thing for a good few years now, you know.
He still is.
So I was getting a few pints down here, and I went up to the bar, and mobile phones are a big thing, and I went up and I said to the barman, it was under different management, Anthony, so you're exempt from this, but I went over to the bar and I said, would you be able to charge me phone? And the bar person said, look at the charger's being used at the moment. And I said, yeah, that's grand. And next minute the fella came over, he was kind of the boss. He said, you charge that man's phone. That man is a legend. He gave his life for Wexford Hurling. That man scored a goal in All Ireland. So I was delighted, but I put it in charge, a bit embarrassed and whatever. Kind of a long night, went into the toilet and I sat down. I went into the cubicle. I was kind of having a bit of a tough night, you know, and I sat down for a while, gathering my breath. And the very same fella that was kind of after what came in, I could hear him talking, and he says, I see Dempsey's in tonight. One hit fucking wonder, that fella. so I have to say, Wooly, I know these guys. They're great supporters. Another thing was...
I actually told your man to say that.
I think Larry was working behind the bar that night. But I actually, another time, about after 96 All Ireland, so they would put you on paper. A little fella came in to me. I was working in the bank at the time, and he said... Came in and a little autograph book. You Tom Dempsey? And I said, Jesus, I am, yeah. You played for Wexford and All Ireland last week. And I said, I did. And he handed me up a little autograph book. And sure, I was going to sign to him and we're looking at it. He said, you wouldn't do me a favour and get me Martin Story's autograph. So, on that hand, Wooly, they're a great, like, they are the most fantastic supporters. Like next Sunday we'll go up to Croke Park. And I think the big difference is that we'll bring a huge crowd. But the Wexford fans love this Wexford team, and they love Davy, you know, and I've listened to the boys there, but they absolutely love Davy. We're going up without this weight of expectation. We're going up, and I think whatever happens, happens. We've won Leinster and whatever. And I think it's going to be an advantage to us, because the Tip supporters, like the traditional counties, they're going to put kind of pressure. They need to win, and they'll give out. And I think there's a better feeling about Wexford. And I suppose if I was to explain what Wexford supporters mean to me, and Larry will remember, the 1997 All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary. I remember going out on the field and there was 40,000 plus Wexford people there that day. It was the most incredible atmosphere. It didn't work out for us, but an incredible atmosphere. I remember going out on the field, and when Wexford hit the field that day, just from the field point of view, it almost was like there was thunder hitting the ground, you know. It was just amazing. And then the purple and gold, it was like a thunder and lightning storm when you went out on the field. And that's the kind of support that Wexford people give to Wexford. And you know, I'd never underestimate it. I look at the people here. I think we're one of the most passionate. We've lived on very little success, but we're a seriously passionate county. And the last thing I'd say, I always laughed, we know how to celebrate as well, as you can see there tonight, but we know how to celebrate victories. There's a good friend of mine, Brian Morris, Larry, you know him well.
From Wales.
Brian comes over from Wales. He's connections here with the Sack Welsh and that, and he's from Fishguard. But Brian came over and stayed a couple of extra weeks after 96 to do a bit of celebrating with us, you know.
I think he got divorced, actually, Tom.
But he was.
He got divorced after that.
And all was going well with the new woman, I believe.
Oh, he's going very well, yeah. And she's just hoping Wexford don't win this year, or he could be gone again.
He should be gone again. He could be going for a third, I'll tell you the truth. But Brian was coming out of the Gaelic Bar, which is a pub up the road, you know. And he's coming out at 5 o'clock in the morning, about a week and a half after the Leinster final, or the All-Ireland final that year. And the guards said, look, enough is enough. We'll have to put these Wexford people back to normal. So the guards arrived at the door. Brian was coming out, and next when the guard put his hand on his shoulder, sorry, you have to go back in, I'm afraid. And Brian says, no, I've had enough, he said. So I'm just saying, for me, Wooly, and not to talk, they're the best supporters in the country. They'll put you in your place when they have to. But I'll tell you this, by Jesus, I'm looking forward to next Sunday. It's going to be a serious day in Croke Park.
Here's a question, Larry, that I always wanted to ask you lads from Wexford, is that Tom talks about the thunder when you come out in the field. And I remember in 96, I remember watching this as a young fella and thinking, this is a bit strange, that Limerick burst out into the field and you walked out. I remember Martin Story almost keeping you all back, and you walked out casually like you were walking, I don't know, to the Jacks in a pub. It was nothing. But what was this planned, or was this? What was the psychology behind that?
I think throughout the years, throughout the whole championship, I think Liam Griffin had a great hold on everything that was going to happen. He sort of prepared us very well into every game. He had us visualising everything that was going to happen. And you're right. I thought on the All-Ireland final day, was it Micheál Mulhurty came into the dressing room just to see whether there were any changes in the team or that like that, just some updates that he needed to get done. And he came in and he actually said to Liam Griffin, this is the coolest dressing room, the calmest dressing room I have seen in a long time before an All-Ireland final.
Right.
And then that sort of carried on the way to...
So was the plan to walk out, or was just a calm dressing room?
Yeah, just to be cool and calm, and the minute you hit the turf, just soak in the atmosphere. He was telling us to that it's going to be a hell of a blast when you get out there, especially all on final day. What's going to hit you the minute you hit there? It's not just the pressure that comes from you, but the atmosphere that comes from the crowd. And Thomas said he's talking about thunder and lightning that hit us, but I got very emotional actually running out onto the field at 96 All-Ireland final. I just said, we just have to do this. We just have to do it. We just can't throw in the towel now. We've gone so far. We just need it. 68 was the last time we achieved it, and this is a day that we will remember for the rest of our lives if we just keep concentrating and do exactly what we had planned to do from the word.
Yeah, it's a funny one, Cheddar, because you think that the team that's sprinting out... I've never walked out in a field in my life. I used to love to sprint out on it, and there was a psychology about that, and you wouldn't just walk, you'd sprint as hard as you could. And even if there was a picture, you'd sprint past it and then you come back for the picture, you know? Yeah. So to see the lads just walking out casually, it was gas. But then it's always funny. I remember Cyril Farrell saying this: Limerick actually got the better start, but Wexford won the match. So who knows what was the right thing to do, you know? Well, obviously walk out.
It's difficult to read, I suppose. It depends on the team to an extent as well, Wooly. But look, you're going to go out on the field, you're going to sprint out onto the field. You're not going to start the game for 15, 20 minutes, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, so what's the point? You know, you need to build up slowly and be ready. I'd say on a serious level, lads.
Maybe you could all get a lift out onto the field.
No, it depends on the team, really. You know, some teams need to motivate themselves to do that, and some teams surf the energy coming out onto the field. Yeah. You know, I can't explain that. Tom and Larry has explained it much better than I have. But it depends on the team. What's crucial is that the management team understands that and, you know, manages that, because it could turn the other way very, very easily as well. You know, some players go out in the field, never look at the stand or anything like that. The sports psychologist would tell you to soak it all in. Look up, soak it all in, understand what's going on around you, and then concentrate on your game. So it's good to have that level of detail going out onto the field, because, you know, in Laois's lifetime, going into an All-Ireland, it's probably going to be once at best in 30 or 40 years. You need to get all of them things right.
Yeah.
And it may very well be, look, we all know going out in the field that you need to get your second breath, that, you know, you're tearing around the place for a minute, and then you get your second breath, and then you're off, you're into the game, you get stuck into it. It's just managing all those little minutiae at a crucial time. Because, look, hurling's such a game, you could be 3 or 4 goals down, and get it wrong, and you're out of the game really early.
Yeah. Did you think, Tom, even when Liam was telling you to walk out in the field, did you think maybe this is a weird thing, or did you think, oh, well, we've won up in Limerick because this makes sense and no one else is doing this?
Yeah, there was one thing that happened, and Larry will remember. Griffin, I didn't talk to Griffin for about 6 months in that particular 96 All-Ireland year, because he was after dropping me, and I thought it was I thought it was the greatest corner forward in the world. Like, you know, I couldn't get over it. But one thing that Griffin did, Griffin had a different strategy for every day that you went out. He was, without doubt, way before his time. And the strategy he used that day, which I thought was particularly ingenious, was Shawnee Flood. Shawnee had missed the All-Ireland that year. You have to think about Shawnee's situation, one of our favourite hurlers, Larry. Yeah, and you know, Shawnee was a different type of a player, but his father, Tim Flood, had played for Wexford in the 50s. Shawnee's dream all his life was to play for Wexford in an All-Ireland final. Injured himself in the semi-final. We knew that he wasn't going to make it. So just before we left the dressing room that day, we had the very same thing in the dressing room, Cheddar. You know, we were absolutely ready. Rod Guiney, I said, please don't let me get in that man's way, because he'd put me out through the dressing room wall, right? So Griffin, just as we went out the door, he just stopped everyone. Shawnee was standing there, totally not expecting to be asked this. But he said, Shawnee, last word to you. And Shawnee just turned around, and it was very emotional. And you know, and Larry was saying about emotion. Emotion is a big part of Wexford's psyche, you know, and sometimes it hamstrings us, but it's a big part of our psyche. Shawnee was standing at the door and he said, look lads, he said, you never know the opportunity in life you have till it's taken away from you. And it was particularly emotional. I remember every player just did that to him, walked out. And I think that's what kind of settled us down a little bit. We went 5 points to 1 down after 15 minutes, so it maybe didn't work as well as we thought. But I think, you know, Griffin had great strategies from that point of view, and that's my kind of one of the greatest lessons in life that I've ever had through GAA.
Yeah.
Always take that opportunity, and by jeepers, I hope the boys take that opportunity. I think that I won't give my prediction yet, Wooly, but I'm hoping. I'm very hopeful, Wooly.
Well, at the moment, there's been 11 games between Tipperary and Wexford in the Championship. Tipperary on 7, Wexford on 3. There's been 1 draw. So, like, I mean, I think Wexford got the better of Tip in the 60s, but it's been more Tipperary since then. And the two of you have been involved. You were involved in 97. You would have been favourites going into that one as defending All-Ireland champions. And in 01, when you wouldn't have been favourites, Larry. And I suppose 97 would have been a bit of a shock to the system. Tipperary were coming through the back door, and you would have been expecting to beat them after retaining Leinster after winning the All-Ireland.
Yeah, that's the first year that the back door was actually introduced into the championship. And we were actually, after beating Kilkenny in the Leinster final, I remember Liam Dunn said to me, this is even greater than actually beating Limerick in the All-Ireland of 96. Wow. You know, just because we struggled for years and years, Tom would tell you, to beat Kilkenny, to beat them whether it's the first round or the semi-final or the final, just to beat them that year was something fantastic. And then after that we were saying, yeah, all gun-ho, now we're back up where we were back in 96. You know, the attitude was good, the body language was good, the whole thing seemed to be coming nicely for us. And the back door came in, we faced Tipperary, and I think it was Gerlach Nan actually maybe on the Sunday game might have said, you know, Wexford's roughhouse tactics won't work with Tipperary in this big game. So we were a little bit concerned. We were saying, yeah, maybe he thinks maybe Tipperary are a lot stronger, tougher than us. But we did go into that game with Rory McCarthy had a slight injury. Gary Laffin, who's here tonight, had a bit of an injury. Rod Guiney had a bit of an injury.
I was injured myself.
Tom was injured himself. Well, he said that after the game because he didn't score in the game. You know, but we went into that game thinking that we have a great opportunity of overturning Tipperary. Yeah. But, you know, past history with Tipperary, from our standard, wasn't great. That thing that we say, we've always a great chance of beating Tipperary, but we sort of never believed that we were good enough to beat them. But we obviously we have a chance of beating them, and maybe that's the reason why we sort of lost out in '97. And then if you go back on to 2001, was the very same thing. We got a great chance in the first game. You know, we were 8 points down at half time. There was a little bit of argy-bargy going on at half time. Gerald Cush and Tony Dempsey were over us, and they said, Larry, you have to stay where you're playing. You can't be attacking forward. You've got to stay in your position. And I was a little bit concerned because my guy had dropped back in the midfield or half-back line or whatever. But they made a change at half-time and they said, look, Larry, go for it now. Your chance is there. If you get the opportunity, go forward, go forward.
You followed him on then, did you?
I just followed him on. And thankfully, you know...
And you got 2 goals.
Got 2 goals.
Well, come on now. Someone had to mention the 2 goals.
And I set up the third one as well, actually, by the way.
For Tom.
No, I was retired that time.
Tom was finished. Tom, you're blaming refereeing decisions. Is it for 01 you're blaming them or for 97 and 01?
Look, Wooly, I'm amused. I'm amused when I see pundits talking about the Leinster final and Colin Fennelly was held in the square and whatever. Jesus, we inherited. We were the ones that were done more by referees over the last 100 years, right? And I think I'm right. I'm saying the right things now, aren't I? But I give you one quick, good one. We've some great referees down in Wexford, and it is a tough job, Wooly. It is a tough job, you know. But before I go into that, I just said, we have a guy down here called Damien Donovan. Very, very witty referee now. You know, he's a brilliant referee. I make no pretense. He's a brilliant referee. I don't know if Damien's out there, but you're a brilliant referee, Damien. And he was refereeing one day, and sometimes the referee strikes back, but Damien was refereeing one day, and this big, huge fella buried a fella. And Damien went over to give him the yellow card. He was going to give him, Damien would shuffle over, and he says, what's your name? And your man says, Humpty Dumpty. So Damien turned around to him and he says, what did you say? I'll give you one more chance. He says, Humpty Dumpty. And so your man, the language wasn't so good. He said, Humpty Dumpty. And Damien says, and how do you spell the Dumpty? D-U-M-P-T-Y. And Damien says, well, I'll tell you what, Humpty. Took the red card out, says, go over and sit on the wall over there. So I have to say, And that's a true story, you know. But my problem with referees, in 1997, Larry said there a minute ago, we were a bit naive. We were Leinster champions. Everything was going well. We'd won 7 games in a row in Croke Park, and things were really good, going for. And I always remember going out in the field. But Ger Loughnane had said that Wexford's roughhouse tactics won't work with Tipperary, and this gathered legs. And I to this day, and James, you might tell me, I don't know why Ger said this, because we would have supported Clare so much through '95. I know he's only one Clare man. Maybe, just maybe he was afraid to meet us in the final. But anyway, that was one. But the referee on the day, he really did crucify us. I mean, Rory McCarthy was hit, and he didn't even get a free. And Wexford players were almost afraid to move that day. Now, we were beaten by a better team, and we can't complain about that or whatever. But I felt at '97 we didn't get to rub it green. 2001, there was time up. Paul Codd had the ball in his hand on the drawn day. Now, Paul Codd was one of the best strikers of a hurling ball I've ever seen.
With nearly 30 seconds left on the clock.
30 seconds left on the clock, just about to strike the ball, would have put us a point up, referee blew the final whistle. So you'll have to excuse me.
Where was he on the field?
He was, I say he was about 60 yards out.
out.
But if you knew this man, he was in the goal.
Guaranteed score.
He was actually in the dugout.
He was in the goal.
Taken off.
Just sitting on the wall, Larry.
But that didn't matter. We were going to score. But I genuinely feel that we haven't got the rub of the green, and I do think that maybe we deserve a little bit of a rub of the green every so often. And it's just a little bit disappointing sometimes. I think Davy on the start of your programme sometimes says that with the little fish doesn't always get the run, and to a certain extent we don't always get the run. That's my own opinion.
Maybe that. We'll talk about the rough house tactics, because in the replay in 01 there was 2 sendings off.
Yeah.
We have footage of Mitch Jordan. I don't think anyone can have any complaints about Mitch Jordan, can they? We have Mitch Jordan. He was already on a yellow.
Just before half time.
Yeah, this was after Liam Dunn's one. We'll show Liam Dunn the one after this, but Mitch Jordan's one first. He was already on a yellow.
He was
okay. Now,
marginal.
He was unlucky. No,
that was marginal. That was marginal, Wooly.
There was nothing in that, right? Cheddar, you're the only neutral here. That was a second yellow. Like, I know that was back in an era, but that was a yellow at any era, no?
I'm not so sure, actually, Woody. I think the other lad got in the way, to tell you the truth.
All right, okay. None of you are agreeing with me that was. I'm not a hurling man. I don't know. That looks sore.
Woody, back on our own day, you wouldn't have got a car
for about 5 seconds and then it'd be gone. Yeah.
Right, now I will agree as a non-hurling man that Liam's Dunn's red card was a disgrace and O'Mara's was a disgrace. This was not a sending off. We have footage of that as well.
This is what happened for sending off earlier on. Let's see.
So obviously, I'm following hurling a long time. I never played it, but I've seen that going on for years. I've seen that going on for donkey's years, and that's not even a yellow card with a lot of referees. So I don't know, Larry, for 2 reds to go for that seemed a little bit completely harsh.
Actually, it was very harsh, to be quite honest. And it's strangely enough, actually, we seem to be coping quite well with Tipperary actually in that game. Till Liam and Brian O'Mara got sent off, and all of a sudden the whole thing opened up for Tipperary. They seemed to get a better run on us than we did on them.
Right.
So
Liam would have been a much bigger lost he than Brian would have. No disrespect to Brian, but he was your leader.
Without a doubt, yeah. So as we're all aware, Liam Dunn has been a great leader in Wexford hurling for many years. Every time he put his jersey on, but I was quite disappointed in the end, and I even said it to the linesman going off. I said that was a disgrace. He said, he said, I'm here to do my job, and I said, well, you didn't do your job today, so go get a job somewhere else.
Well, Wooly, in the I'm going to talk wrongly here now, but in the referee's defence that day, I always remember, Michael Dygan will remember this, but Liam was an unusual type of player. I remember tactics were a bit different in our time. We were playing Offaly in Leinster final one year, and Johnny Flood was hurling on Johnny Dooley. And Johnny had a thumb injury going into it. He'd broken his thumb. And we were discussing it before the game. And Shawnee said, which thumb is broken? And Liam walked by him, he said, you've only 2 thumbs, he said. So Liam was a tough man on the field now.
Wooly, I think the issue there, though, is the same issue nearly in every game with referees. Do you referee by the rule, or do you referee by the way hurling people would like a game to be refereed? I think Liam was a massive loss that day. I absolutely agree with that, and a hugely important player to Wexford. And I think when
Cheddar, just on that, did Liam's reputation go before him? Because I wouldn't have seen an awful lot of Liam. Would have seen him towards the end of his career. But Liam was a great leader and a great player. But let's not dress it up. He was a hatchet man as well, no?
Look, Wooly, I disagree with that. I wouldn't agree with that. And no, it's not just because I'm in Wexford. I actually know Liam.
Never heard on him, Cheddar.
I know Liam very well, and look, he was.
I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Those times were hard hurling, Willie. There was lots of players. You just simply had to be a hard hurler. Bear in mind, Liam Dunn wasn't the tallest of players, and was number 6 on the Wexford team for a good few years, and hurling a lot of very tall players. And look, even just knocking back the ball and that. Well, look, if you put up your hand there to catch the ball, what do you expect? So no, I'm being honest about that.
You don't expect to find your hand in the back of the Hogan stand.
No, I'm being honest about that, Larry, and I am backing up. I am backing up Liam on that. He was a fantastic, skilled hurler. Don't ever forget that. He was a very skilled hurler, and I think that day you're right. Brian O'Mara was a good player, but Wexford really missed Liam Dunn that day.
Yeah, I think Liam Dunn actually met him the following year. This was in Liam Dunn's book. Met O'Mara to make amends. O'Mara missed the All-Ireland final because of that. And O'Mara blanked him, wouldn't speak to him at all.
But I actually think Liam Dunn might have wrote a letter to the Leinster Council or whoever to appeal his case to let him play in the All-Ireland final.
Right.
I think Wexford represented Brian O'Mara to say, look, give him a chance. This is only an opportunity in life that you get to play in an All-Ireland final. But I will say about Liam Dunn, he is one of the best hurlers we have had to wear that Wexford jersey. I'd go to war with him. If there was a battle on tomorrow, he'd be on my back. I tell you that now. He wore his heart on his sleeve. But I did have a couple of runs in with that club hurling, and Tomby was the very same. He have no problem cutting your little finger off or your big finger off or the top of your head. But at the end of the game, he'd shake your hand, and that's what I love in a man.
I think so, and I have to say, I thought it was very nice. Declan O'Keefe paid tribute to Liam Dunn and the work he did with him in the previous 5 years to Davy, because I just was surprised. He says, in fairness, Liam, he brought us a hell of a long way in the 5 years we had him. This is after winning a Leinster under Davy. And the easiest thing in the world to do was say Davy's brilliant.
I think that was great respect.
It was a great mark of Declan O'Keefe.
I was delighted he said it. And Liam Dunn, raised the standard of hurling in Wexford, definitely in the first year and in the second year. But as time goes on, sometimes this just happens. Maybe in our 3rd or 4th year, things go a little bit flat. And look, there's very little you can actually do about that. But he certainly has, in my view, from the outside looking in, and the lads beside me here can attest to this, he has served Wexford well.
Yeah, definitely.
You were just saying there, Willie, I think it's a testament to Dee O'Keefe as well.
Yeah.
Here's a series, we see some of Dan's boys here tonight, and this guy, I think he served as secretary, hasn't he? Served down in the, he's just an incredible young man, if you knew him. And there's a lot of the Wexford players that way, but I was with
very dodgy haircut now. But
I have to say, but I can't talk too much about haircuts. I'd love to have his haircut, Wooly, I have to say, but he was great. I was with Liam with the Wexford minor team in 2008 and 2007, and we were the famous selectors that lost 13 versus 15 against Galway. But
never forget.
But Liam did, and Seamus is right, Liam did incredible work. Liam got involved with those guys when they were 15 or 16 years of age. Mark Fanning, Matthew O'Hanlon, Diarmuid O'Keefe, Paul Morris. I could go down through probably 50% of that panel, and he deserves a huge amount. With possibly now, and I would be very straight about it, possibly not the same cooperation from the Wexford County Board that maybe Davy is getting at the moment.
Right.
And I think he needs I think he needs nearly a round of applause for that now.
Yeah, fair enough. Here's another question, because I was watching the video of Liam and Brian going at each other with the old jabbing and all, and I was thinking, I've never done it, but then I have a picture here and I want your analysis of this. So you think Liam, being the hardy fella, experienced at this, so he's on that side, he's butting him with the boss of the hurley, and he's getting the butt of it in himself. Is that not stupid from Liam's point of view, not to be standing on the other side, to be giving him the butt?
But if you actually look closely to Liam's hurley, there's an awful sharp point on the top of Someone told me he'd call him a lumberjack one time before.
Yeah.
But like when you're in that button, would you not turn your hurl and be able to give him one?
Well, it depends on whether you want to cut somebody or break their rib, I suppose. And I'd say Liam was going for the cut.
Oh, the top of the hurl will give you the cut.
The top of the hurl, it's like a fella from Buffers Alley told me one time, if you turn your fist like that just as you hit somebody, you'll always cut him.
Right,
so
okay.
that's the way Buffers
And
Alley
I have the scars to prove it.
So, Cheddar, which side of the hurl did Cameras like to use? Was it the butt or the top?
No, we just talked to one another.
Wooly, I'd just like to say about Cheddar. Cheddar hit myself and Martin Quigley with the one pull at the open of the Nicky Rackard pitch up in Rathmuir one year.
At a challenge match?
I got 5 stitches, Martin got 4, and it was the one pull. So I don't know what end of the hurl you were using that day.
No, the real truth of that story now was a little bit different. I knew Tom a little bit before that match, and actually, Wooly, I think I was picked to play full forward. Where was that match, Tom? I think it was in
Rathmuir.
Rathmuir, was
yeah,
it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it might be an opening of a pitch or something like that. I was actually picked to play full forward, but the regular release full back at the time was a friend of mine, was John Bahan. I think he got injured and wasn't able to play, and suddenly I was shifted from 14 back to 3. And I hadn't played at 3 since under 12, hadn't a clue how to play it. So they must have saw something in me, Tom, is all I'll say. But anyway, I met Tom coming out into the field. He says, quickly, he's going to be hurling full forward. He says, look, will you look after me there? I'm looking for a spot in the team. So I asked him, what do you expect me to do? Well, he says, we'll drop in a few high ones into Quigley there. He says, and look after me. So a high one came in, and I was regularly playing the other side of the field, and I didn't really know what to do. So I said I'd bat it out or pull, and I must have missed it by about a smidgen. And this fellow must have been going across in front of me at the same time. But anyway, look, that's the story. Wasn't it done too bad, Tom? Because the following weekend we were playing Tipperary in the challenge match below, and Tip Town, same thing, opening by pitch again. Unfortunately, I was playing a Nicky English, and that finished my full back career.
She's a classic, Cheddar, taking 2 out with the one blow. Like I've never been so proud of you.
No truth in that.
Right, lads, we'll finish with, do you know what? We'll finish with predictions. And I want to start with you, Larry, because we're 2-1, you're 2-1 down. And just give us your idea. Before we get into predictions, actually, I want to just quickly mention the bad press around the Wexford system, right? So we have Jim Bulger, where I don't know why his comments got so much attention. He's a horse race trainer. He would know no more about hurling than I would. But Martin Storey actually described Wexford style as imported hurling, whatever he meant about that. Now, this is before the Leinster final. Maybe Martin has a different opinion now that it's won. Nothing against Martin, but there was bad press, even within Wexford, against Davy's system. Maybe influenced by Michael Dyson in an RTE, who knows. No, that's a joke. But like, it's there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's completely different to what we used to play. We were man on man, 15 on 15, and made the best man win. So Davy came in, he introduced a new hurling strategy within Wexford, and to be quite honest, it took a lot to get used to what he was trying to do.
Because you're a traditional county hurling county,
yeah, we
right?
were 15 on 15. Tom will tell you, club hurling, inter-county hurling, we go man on man and made the best man win. And if you're good enough, you stay on. If you're not, off you go and have an early shower. But in terms of what Davy came in, he tried to just readjust the whole thing. People call it the sweeper system. Davy call it an attack in the half-back, or in the approach of taking on the opposition or whatever. So he sort of gathers everyone back and go forward. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people thought the system didn't work. But it did take us 2 or 3 years to understand it. Some people didn't like it. Some people thought it was a little bit basic, and we didn't think we were ever really improving on what we thought we had with the calibre of players that we had. When we thought we could get an awful lot more out of them with the success that we had with under 21s, we thought we were good enough to keep going that step further every time. And Davy came in, he addressed it a little bit different, and he came up with his ideas, and he came up with his ways of approaching the game a little bit different. And last Leinster final sort of really proves this point, that it does work for you. It might take a long time to work, and Jim Bulger was unhappy with it. There was a few other people. Martin Storey might have made his comments about it. Frank Lohan or Brian Lohan might have said a few things about it. But sometimes you'll only judge a guy when the whole thing is over. And Davy got us a Leinster title this year, which we were very, very pleased and happy to get. But if, as someone said earlier, if it didn't happen for us, we'd be saying, what the hell have Davy done for us? But to win a Leinster title has meant an awful lot to Wexford people. And so his style of play has risen hurling, has risen the potential, and it also has risen the hope of all our, as Tom said, our great supporters that we have following us and following the team from here on in. So, hopefully, fingers crossed that we can get over Tipperary next Sunday. And
okay, give us a prediction. Will you do it?
I think
we're going to do it.
I think we're in a great position. I think our win in Leinster final, the win of Leinster final has really put us up another step. If we'd have lost the Leinster final to Kilkenny, we'd be judging ourselves very harshly going into this game. I think we're in a great position. We've some of our key players hurling very well. The attitude of the players is very good. Their physicality is very good. Their mentality is very good. So I think next Sunday, we will rattle Tipperary. We need to get up in their face, give them no space, don't let them breathe, don't even let them spit, don't let them have a drink, tear into them, and we'll be in.
Wooly, I can see Davy bringing in Larry next Sunday and doing a team talk before they go out there.
And by the way, the rumour is I am not joining the panel for this Sunday. I am not doing a Martin story. I'm gone too old.
Tom, right, we're too all in the predictions here.
Yeah, I suppose I'd be very close. Unlike the boys, I'd be very close to Davy. I'd be ringing him every kind of second day, and I suppose I hope it doesn't leave this room, but we're.
You have Davy's pajamas in his bedroom.
And just so people know, the Wexford support, we're going with 10 defenders and 2 goalies next Sunday. So that's not to go back to Liam Sheedy or whatever, but no, I think it's going to be a very tight game, and I think why people are not giving outright predictions is they're not totally sure whether Wexford's momentum, and I'll tell you, Wexford's momentum is a big thing, Wooly. It's a big thing, whether that'll come out or whether Tipperary just have brilliant hurlers. My own opinion is that if we can protect our full back line, and we have a very good full back line, the Tipperary forwards, and we mentioned them earlier, Callan, Jason Ford and John McGrath. Yeah, John McGrath. They're capable of scoring 4 goals next Sunday. That's the truth of the matter. If we can protect that well, my firm belief is that Wexford will win on Sunday. I do believe they will win on Sunday. I'm not saying we're a better team than them. I think we're in a better place than them. And I actually think Wexford can win the game on Sunday.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, Sue Wexford. No pressure, Cheddar, but the cast and vote is to you. Is 3-2 in favour of Wexford?
I suppose, I look at it a little bit differently, I suppose. I think momentum is really, really important, and I think Wexford have it at the minute. But sometimes that can sort of lead to, and Tom and Larry, I'd often think this about Wexford, sometimes there's a little bit too much heart and not enough head. Head's going to win the game on Sunday, maybe more than heart. But I'd say, I think you look at Tipperary at the minute, they're after having 2 poor performances according to their standard. Playing against Limerick, playing against a system that they didn't handle very well, and didn't really handle it very well in the league game or in the league championship game in Thurles either, even though they won it. And against Laois in the last game, Laois played it with his sweeper. And you would say that Wexford would know well how to play, or Tip would know how to play against a sweeper, and still didn't play well, even though Laois were a player down for all of the second half. So they just have poor form at the minute. And I think some of the lads mentioned earlier on that some of their players are not playing to the best of their ability. But I just think that Liam and Eamon in particular will come in something different. When you play with a system and you play in a certain shape, the opposition will want to disrupt you. And I think Tip may very well come at something different on Sunday to try and disrupt the Wexford system. Because Wexford depend a lot, obviously, on a sweeper, so they're not going to leave Kevin Foley as a sweeper to mop things up. Now, they may not mark him either. They may just use the ball around him. And I think Tip will come at, first of all, the matchups will be important. It's likely that James Barry, I think, will be on Conor McDonald. James Barry is a very good club hurler in Tipperary, and, it will relish that challenge. They may very well put Brendan Maher on Rory O'Connor. And, when you look at those matchups, and if the Tip players come out on top, then that reduces, I think, Wexford's effectiveness. But I think what Tip will really look at is they won't take on, I think, Wexford in the middle third, because look, that's Wexford's strong point. That battling qualities in the middle third is really, really strong, their tackling ability and all of that. They may do something completely different. They may take Noel McGrath with the middle of the field and play himself and Bubbles as 2 number 11s around that zone, shooting from distance. And that takes Kevin Foley out of the play completely straight away. And look, they've two fair players inside, even, you know, after 15 or 20 minutes if they want to change that up and push somebody in. So I think Tip will look at disrupting Wexford. And if they do, I think if Tip shoot from distance and that game goes 7 points to 1 or 6 points to 1 after about 15 minutes, look, there's pressure on Davy then to do something. You've now got to react. You cannot let the game drift away from you. It's too important. Now you're on the back foot and you're reacting to things. So I think it'll be, you know, it'll obviously be a huge battle. And I think that you know, what both managers do, how they set up, who marks who, the system of play that they actually play. I've seen Wexford play a good few times this year. They have an ability to change things up. I think the fact that Conor McDonald played further out from goal the last than he did below on the park here on the Saturday evening was different. But I just think that if Tip changed their game around, bear in mind they've had 2 flat performances, and I don't think they can go to toe-to-toe like they have in the first 2 or 3 rounds below Munster when they were, you know, tracking back to feed and throwing in tackles and running 100 metres back to feed and throwing in tackles, and then you're expecting to be up the field again to take handy scores and that. I think Tip might approach this differently, and I think they will put shooters out the field, shoot from distance, cause problems for Wexford, and now Wexford have got to react to that. I think it'll be very, very interesting from a manager's perspective to actually look at that and see how that pans out.
Prediction, Cheddar?
Look, I'd say if Tip go as they are now,
in a word,
and if Wexford play to their strength. Sorry, there's a couple of other little points there as well.
Sounds like you're going to Tip now. It sounds like you're going to Tip.
No, there's a couple of other serious points to take on board here. Wexford's conversion rate from shots was very, very high. It was inordinately high. Even Lee's shooting from frees was very, very high. They're going to need that again, you know, to come out on the right side here. I think if Tip change around their team in a different way, I think Wexford will find it hard to beat him. I think if the both teams stay the same way with the same setups, I think Wexford will win. So I'm sitting on the fence here.
No.
It's a long way to the door, Willie.
I think he's afraid to say
it's actually a sofa he's sitting on.
Cheddar, who are you going for?
Well, look, I'll make this statement, Willie. I'm a Leinster man. My heart says Wexford. But as I say, look, you've got to look at this analytically as well. Tip have a serious forward line. If they open up the space and if they change their team around a little bit to facilitate those type of players, I think Tip will win the match. So that's my comment.
Great stuff. So we're at 3-3, and it's down to me for the final prediction, and I'm going for Wexford.
Willie, you're a big pussy.
Oh well, I think it was Michael Dignan said that we know what we're getting from Wexford and we're not sure what we're getting from Tipperary, and that's good enough for me.
Well, there's one other comment I want to make.
Made a great point that he says Wexford are 15 Bonner Mars, and that's enough to scare Tipperary.
That's a fair point. That's the point I was making about the middle third, Willie. There's one other comment I just want to make. Some of the older people here might remember 68. And I just asked Tom earlier on. I think Buffers won their first championship in '68, and you obviously won an awful lot since. But there was one other aspect about '68. I think it was the first time that, when we were talking about music, about the lads earlier on, it was the first time the music was played at half time. I think Sleeve na Bond was played for Tipperary, if I stand corrected, but I think the Streams of Bunclody was played for Wexford. But there was one other interesting little aspect, because we're in a music pub here, and because for all ye music buffs out here, the band was called Emmett Spiceland, and the musician, or the serious musician on it, was Donald Lunny. So that's bit of useless information, might wrap me up here.
Okay, excellent stuff. Right, well listen, we have a little surprise for you to finish the show out, so we're done. Thanks very much all the Wexicans for coming out. You've been absolutely brilliant. Like I said, demand for the show tonight was off the charts. We're definitely coming back down, as Larry says. We'll do an open air concert, which is going to be absolutely brilliant. We're going to have Tom play out the show with the purple and gold, and we have accompanying him. We have Nick Darcy, who is the lead singer of Corner Boy. Before Tom starts, we have Larry just wants to give you a quick shout out on Faith Harriers draw. Larry.
Lads, listen, Faith Harriers Hurling Club. We're actually building a new clubhouse in Pork Orban for the future of our kids within the club. We have a house on offer for sale in Maynooth, County Kildare. It's a £405,000 house. The tickets are on sale at €100 each. Be given a chance to win the house.ie. Support the Harriers, support the GAA, support Wexford. And after next Sunday, we'll see you in the All-Ireland final.
All right. There you go. listen, all we can say is good night, and I'm done now. Let Tom take it away, and Mick.
2-2. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a bit nervous, so there's only one way to introduce this man. It's Tom Dempsey!
A father and son, they stood hand in hand as they watched Wexford play from the back of the stand. And the words that he said, I'll hear when I'm old. It is a beauty to behold when you see the purple and gold. The purple and gold is my heart and my soul. From the men of today to the heroes of old, the purple and gold is the dream I still hold. It was a privilege, I've been told, to wear the purple and gold. Jesus. I can still see them now on the All-Ireland Day, and the record stood proud. By God, could they play? And the Quigley stood tall, every man brave and bold. It is a beauty to behold when you see the purple and gold. All together, the purple and gold is my heart and my soul. From the men of today to the heroes of old, the purple and gold is a dream I still hold. It is a beauty to behold when you see the purple and gold. It is a beauty to behold when you see the purple and gold of Wexford. I've now played with corner boy.
You know this next one, do you? Come on. Ah, come on, sing with us now.
Well, I remember as a young boy, the beginning of September, we were standing at the station, waiting for a train. And there was creasers and brothers, there were nuns and reverend mothers, there were guys and drunks and others, and everyone was just the same. And we stood on the 40 from New Ross and Fertigori. There were buses from McClody, there were harts and carts and all. And with Salamander Crawthorne, they were shouting and screaming. And carried Larry Murphy, he was 25 feet tall. So what's the story, Martin? Story? Wexford dreaming about for glory. And then the elastic cup is lifted. He said, we brought it back for you. We were dancing in the crossroads, in the shadow of a bonfire, underneath the silver moonlight. We were singing until dawn. We were dancing in the crossroads with the pudding and the porter, dancing jigs and wrinkle pocus until the early morn.
And every barrel on the main street, they were hanging from the rafters as they sang the boys of Wexford. like it was going out of style. All the bingo halls are empty, and all the masters finished early. Do you know I never saw the likes of since the time of JFK. And when we look at you, Gorman, through the Maple he was storming. And when the QC got up there, when he scored from 200 yards, we were dancing in the crossroads, in the shadow of a bonfire, underneath the silver moonlight. We were singing until dawn. We were dancing at the crossroads, with the punching and the porter, and the jigs and rings of focus. We were hanging on till dawn. Here we go! Adrian Fennelly, Larry O'Gorman, Rory McCarthy, Larry Murphy, Gary Laughlin, Damon Scallon, Dave Guy, Declan Root, Jim Byrne, Shane, Carly Paulson, Tommy Coe, Hurling team, and the man who named the dream, his name is Ian Griffin, Seamus Cowan, Joe Kearns, MJ Reck and all the rest. Graveyard Men in 96 that we remember with the best. Rocker Quigley, Whelan, Dawn, Boogie Murphy, Nolan Flood, and the names we can't recall. Wexford heroes, one and all! Give it up for the brother!